Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Lovebirds Week Day 5. It's our last day of the week. Today's topic is Owlsome Owls. It's a hoot. And let me tell you, I had to say that title many times this week, and Jason did not make it easy on me. It's a very hard title to read over and over again. My name is Stephanie Keeler. I'm the Community Program Coordinator at the Riverwood Conservancy. And today I am joined by a very special guest, Jason George. And Jason, sorry everyone. Jason is a wildlife photographer and presenter who retired from teaching to pursue his passion for wildlife. He has traveled to every continent except Antarctica, having some epic experiences along the way. Jason now uses his passion for wildlife to inspire future generations to help animals as he shares his work. Jason has presented to school groups, Girl Guides, special needs groups, and groups in his parents' home country, Jamaica, about his passion for wildlife. He leads private tours and presentations for all abilities. His solo exhibit, Many Faces of Algonquin Park, is on display at the Visitor Center in Algonquin Park from November 6, 2021 to April 27th, 2022. I really recommend going out to it. It's really, really cool. I saw it this past December. It's awesome. You can see more of his work at jasongeorgephotography.com. I also want to say a special hello to all of our school friends that are joining us today. From your classes, please feel free to add any questions or comment in the chat bar. We will answer them as we go or at the end of Jason's presentation. As many of you may know, this week we had a series of events to offer to get everybody ready for the annual Great Backyard Bird Count, which actually starts today. So every year in February for 4 days, people are asked to spend time in their favorite places, watching and counting as many birds as they can find, and then reporting them to Audubon on eBird or whatever other citizen science apps you have. This can be done in your backyard, from your balcony, from a window, in your favorite park, basically anywhere. And it's just a really great initiative. So to get ready for this, we have offered bird-themed programs every day this week with a new topic, new speaker. So please feel free to share how many birds you have seen this weekend with us when you go out, or even if you went out today or this morning already, we'd love to see that list. And before we hand it off to Jason, the Riverwood Conservancy would like to acknowledge that the land on which we operate is the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, Wendat, and Haudenosaunee nations. Today, this place is still home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and we are so grateful to have the opportunity to not only live, but work on this land. So I will stop sharing, and I will hand it over to Owlsome Jason to take it away on owls today.
Okay, so I hope everyone's having a good day. Give me a second and we'll get this all hopefully set up. So hopefully, unfortunately, I can't see anyone's screen right now. Give me a second. Can I bring this to the front?
Are you looking for your screen and my screen?
Yeah.
You go to the top right-hand corner and you drop down. There's a thing to say view panelist or something.
Show video panel?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
That makes it a little bit easier to see some
at least
stuff.
Somebody.
There we go. Okay, so everyone hopefully sees a title screen that says Owlsome Awesome, It's a Hoot. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jason. And if you love my photography, feel free to check out more of it at jasongeorgephotography.com or on my Instagram. But here's a little bit about what we're actually going to be doing today. You're going to learn about my journey with owls because I think it's pretty fun. Then I'm going to talk about some of my favorite tours, and then we're going to head off and talk about the Ontario Owls, and then we'll end with a little safari hunt, which is what everybody seems to really enjoy, and then I'll answer anyone's questions. if you have any questions or comments while I'm talking, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm not going to answer them until the end just because I'll lose my train of thought, and I want to try to tell the story in a certain way. So I hope that's okay. A couple galleries or places I'm showing my work right now is actually in the Algonquin Park at the Many Faces of Algonquin. I also have one that just opened up at the Red Door restaurant in Meaford. And then there's a Celebrate the Color Purple in Thornbury at the Shore Gallery. And that's actually probably one of my favorite things because it's my favorite color. So I had to enter a couple pictures, although they weren't wildlife related. When we were actually talking last, I probably have shared a couple pictures about this story. And I'm photobombing this girl that I don't know. I know you probably can't see it in the back very well, but I shared a picture of this moose with this girl and a bunch of people who were there, and they all loved it. But I also shared it with this magazine. The magazine decided that they were actually going to publish it. And because I'm a little bit silly and I love to do some fun things, I've decided that I'm going to host a contest, and people from all over Canada are actually taking pictures and sending them to me. I got contacted by someone in Saskatoon recently. All you got to do is find the magazine and take a picture with either the front cover or part of the article, and be silly, be fun, be you. Send them to me and I'll share them. You can share them and tag me. Let's have some fun with this. The other thing that's really cool is Our Canada published it. And then Reader's Digest also really liked the story. And they decided to actually share this story. So you can actually search my name up as like an author on Reader's Digest, which I think that's actually a little bit cool. But let's focus on some.
Just before you continue, sorry. Somebody has just commented in the chat bar, if you could move our videos to the right a little bit, it's just blocking part of your screen.
Is that better?
No, our videos actually. You see where our faces are?
Yeah.
On your screen. Yep. Okay. Yep. That's a little bit better. Awesome.
Sorry about that, everybody.
No, don't be sorry. Thank you.
I didn't know that you guys could see your videos. I'm still new to this. But so here is this is when I first moved to Wasaga. I actually got invited to share some photography. And I actually have two pictures shared in this Animal Love Canadian style gallery, which was actually probably my first gallery. And there's some big named artists in this one. But we'll come back to that owl photo a little bit later. Where did my love for owls and animals actually come from? I actually think it came from money. And I know that that might seem a little bit weird to everybody, but if you look at this money, this is the money I grew up with. And I do collect a little bit of money. So I actually look back and I took the picture. But look at the back of the $50 bill. It's the Snowy. Maybe that's where my love for Snowies actually came from. But enough with fake money. Let's actually look at some real owls. So we've got a great horned owl, a Eurasian eagle owl, and a snowy owl. They all have different eyes and they're beautiful animals. These are actually at a falconry school. So if you don't actually know what that is, that's where you actually go and people will fly the owl for you. You can get pretty close to them. So this is Max, and Max and I got along pretty well. I did actually ask a couple cool questions and I wanted to fly this owl. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to fly this owl. But look at how beautiful and still this animal stays as I made that recording. Hopefully it wasn't too grainy. The cool thing is, while I was at the falconry school, I actually asked if I could fly an owl. Like, you know, you fly a paper airplane. I was like, I want to fly an owl. And the guy's like, sure. So he let me actually fly. So I put on the special leather glove. And if you look closely, you can see the owl. And it comes in and it eats a little piece of my food. Oh, it was pretty awesome. I got to fly a few other owls, but this was probably my favorite. So where I am right now is a room that I actually built, which I call like my presentation form. And people have heard about my love of animals and they're all into it. And so a friend of mine actually recently found an owl that had been hit by a car, and he got it stuffed and he loaned it to me. Unfortunately, I don't have it today, so I can't fully share it with you, but this is my snowy owl and her name is Sandy, and I've actually taken it. She met my friends. I had my buddies' kids and a whole bunch of other people. I even took it to presentations with me. I did this presentation about defeating dyslexia because I'm dyslexic, but I brought it because it was talking about my experience of how I changed from being a teacher to becoming a wildlife photographer. So why not bring this awesome prop that I had? And I know that some of you are a little jealous, being like, Jay, we really want to see it. So this is the best I can do. I'm going to share a little video. So a snowy owl is one of the bigger owls. And you can see its size comparison to that golf ball in between its talons. Those talons are huge. And yes, Sandy is actually really soft. No, those are not real eyes, but everything else is real about her. So enough with fake owls and non-wild owls. One day I wake up and I go in my backyard and I see what is referred to as an angel print or a snow angel or an owl angel, whatever you want to call it. But I see something on the ground and I look closely and I think it's an owl. So now I have owls in my backyard. So I spend some days and nights and I listen. Every once in a while I hear an owl. I actually left my house one day and my neighbor actually takes this picture. The best picture of my house my neighbor took. There's a snowy owl sitting on my roof. Are you kidding me? It wasn't until recently that I actually saw my own snowy owl in my backyard. But I do what any sane person would do. You see owl prints, you know that there's an owl on your roof. You go out and you buy an owl house. But I've already have an owl house and it's not working. So I bought my second owl house. I know it's a little bit silly, but so I buy my second owl house, I put it up and it's ready. The only difference between this owl house and my other owl house, this one's got a video camera feed. So I can see what goes on. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an owl just yet. So we're gonna have to wait a little bit. Squirrels have used it, but not an owl. But enough with my backyard. Let's look at my first owl. This is my first owl. And a friend of mine that I met named Jen took me to see my first owl and she taught me how to find it. And it was a magical experience. And from that moment, I knew that I wanted to start sharing that experience with people. So one of my first tours, I took this boy on a trip. I was talking to his mom and dad and I told them how awesome owls were. And they're like, oh man, I'd love to do it. So we set this up and we actually ended up seeing 8 owls that day. 8 snowy owls, which is pretty crazy. But because of that experience that kid had, him and his brother and his family now love wildlife and going outdoors more. And they shared that with me 2 years later. That was a pretty cool like moment for me to realize that I've had such an impact on people. One of my favorite and personal stories that I really love, and there's more to this story if you want to know about it, and I've shared a couple posts about it, but this is my friend Chloe. I took her on an epic first owl tour because her favorite animal is an owl as a little kid. And we planned this day, we even got special shirts made. It was an awesome day. And then her mom made this post and shared it, and she shared this post of Chloe with this awesome hat. And I was like, oh man, I'd love a hat like that, except I wouldn't wear it because it's pink. I'd rather one that was purple. So her mom talks to me and was like, are you serious? I was like, I love purple and I love owls. So a few days later, or a few months later, she actually gives me this owl hat. I should be wearing it right now, but I forgot it in my car. But it is my lucky owl hat. I've seen a few owls and found some awesome things along the way with this hat on. My story with Chloe has actually made the papers a couple times. We actually recently I held a fundraiser for her, and my community ended up helping me raise $8,100 in 36 hours. We were able to get her this robotic feeding arm. It's an amazing thing, and it's awesome that my community was able to help me. So thank you so much, community from around the world. You guys are awesome. But speaking of being in the newspaper, what's hilarious is I actually just released an article this month in the Wasaga Beach Booster, and it's all about the snowy owls. Look at the timing. I'm talking about owls with you, and I'm also in the paper talking about them. Coincidence? I think so. So let's talk about tours specifically. And what do I do on my tours? Well, I take people I know. Sometimes it's people I don't know, and I want to show them owls. I've been trying really hard to get staff to come and see owls with me. One day, maybe she'll come and we'll see some snowies. The season's running short, but maybe one day.
Running out of time.
Yeah. But one day, it's okay. So here's one of my favorite. I'm just going to talk about a few of my favorite ones. So I was hosting this photography workshop for a special needs group, and I met this one guy, and I just connected with him, and I was like, man, I'm going to show you an owl one day. And he's like, really? I was like, I promise you, one day. So I ended up working at his house, and I was like, hey, we ended up finding one, but it was in the distance, and he couldn't really see it. And then we saw one a little bit closer. He loved it. We ended up seeing 3 snowy owls and 1 eastern screech owl. Awesome experience. If you want to know more about this person, you can watch some of my epic firsts with the Maple Leafs and Raptor events. But I took him to see owls. Here's a little bit of a funnier story for some of you. So this owl, I took a buddy of mine to see, and as we got back into the car, a piece of garbage blew out of the car, and I was like, oh man, and I run to go and grab it. Boom, I get hit by something heavy and gross. And I'm like, kind of hurt my shoulder, and I look, and I was like, oh my goodness, smells bad. The owl had pooped on my shoulder. And I'm going to tell you, it is not lucky to get pooped on the shoulder by an owl, because I ran to a lotto store, and I ended up buying I went to the corner store, bought a lottery ticket. I didn't win, so it's not lucky. But I wish I had actually taken a picture of this whole experience. Unfortunately, it's just more of a memory to me. So some people will ask, why and how do I get to see so many owls? Well, one of the reasons is I actually have these special glasses, right? So, and I know that everyone's like, oh, special glasses, they look fake. Well, you know what? Anyone who's ever worn those glasses with me on a tour has seen them. Doesn't matter whether you're old or young, right? You wear these glasses, somehow we end up seeing some owls. Yes, there's no lenses in them, but they bring luck, trust me. And maybe it's not the glasses, maybe it's my special hat. But we normally end up seeing them when I take people out. Sometimes they're way far in the distance, other times they're a little bit closer. And it doesn't matter what you're into. Maybe you just want to see the owls and experience them. Maybe you're actually more of a photographer type person and you wanted to learn about photographing them and getting a better capture. So I do different types of talks while I'm out on these tours. Right, and we can talk and figure it out. Yeah, that owl is pretty far away, but we're going to look at owls a little bit closer up shortly. Sometimes I actually get to take some very talented photographers out on tours. So this lady, Anne, she's one of my favorite photographers out there. If you look closely at those pictures on the bottom of the owl, you'll be like, wow, you guys are so close to those owls. Well, if you actually look at this selfie that we took, you can actually see just how far away that we are. So having a good camera in the photography world can be a big difference between getting a good picture and just a picture. Because in the one picture, you can't actually see the selfie. You can't actually see that there was an owl on top of that big bushy pine tree. But don't forget to enjoy the other wildlife while you're out there. Maybe it's some turkeys. Maybe you see an owl. But if you look closely and you see the owl, sometimes they'll be acting weird and differently because there might be another animal. So in this instance, there's actually a coyote and a owl that sort of come close together and they interact. They sort of fight. No one really does anything, but you can see that they didn't like each other being in their space. I think the owl won because the coyote ran off. Other times you might see a pet peregrine falcon grab a bite, or maybe you get really lucky and you see the big birds in the sky. Have you ever seen a bald eagle? Did you even know that bald eagles live in Canada? Not everybody does, but there's quite a few of them that live in and around Ontario. So if you watch the skies, maybe you'll see an owl or a bald eagle. So how do we get better pictures? Well, the easiest place to get a picture of an owl is probably on a light post. Again, you might not see it on the light post, but if it's there and you see it, try to take a picture, in my mind, that shows the least amount of the light post. That's a personal preference because I don't like them on light posts. It is where they hang out. It just doesn't seem as natural to me. I'd rather see it on a fence post or something than a light post. So if you try to put some trees in front of it, I think it makes the picture look a little bit nicer. Some people, what they do is they do something that's referred to as baiting. So baiting is using normally store-bought mice or critters to entice an owl to fly into a certain place or location so that you can get a cool picture. Why are you interfering and potentially introducing food that might injure or hurt the animal that you're trying to photograph? Like, is it really worth that photo that you potentially introduce a disease from a store-bought critter to these animals? No, they will be fine. They know how to survive. Let them be. Honestly, the owls will stand there and say, no, we don't want it, right? The other aspect is the owls then get closer to the road, and then we get more animals being hit. Yes, I loved having Sandy and all of that, but I'd rather her be alive than dead, right? So, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of this stuff in a little bit. But I'll be honest, I've only ever seen one snowy owl with a mouse. I've seen a few hundred snowy owls, right? I'd rather see it naturally when it naturally occurs. That's a personal preference and something that you need to decide about being an ethical photographer and what you think is what you want to do. So let's talk about the owl species in Ontario. Do you know how many species there are? Feel free to drop your answer if you think you know. Is it 1, 3, 5? Maybe you think it's more. Is it 7? Is it 10? I'm not sure.
We have some guesses, Jason.
Oh.
Shannon thinks 9. Kelly thinks 5. Amanda thinks 5.
So we're going to have to go a little bit higher, everybody. So there's actually 11.
Wow.
Or at least that's what they say. Just so you know, that's people say that there's 11 species, okay? And that's what we're going to now talk about. And we're going to walk our way through some of these owls out there. So people say that there are barred owls. I have yet to see one in the wild, so I do not believe that it exists. That is a personal thing. My friend Anne, who I took on the trip, she has seen some barred owls. She's also helped release them. So I borrowed her pictures with permission to show you how beautiful the bird is. But on our last presentation, there were some people who asked for some certain animals. So this is my opportunity to share those animals, although they're not owls. So we were asked for monkeys. So this is an olive baboon. And we have a howler monkey. We also have the capuchin or the white-faced monkey. This is the lazy monkey, as I refer to it. And then we have the yelling monkey. They are both awesome animals. But let's focus on owls because that's really why we came here. So there's the great gray. I also do not believe that this one exists because I have not seen it. But here you can see Anne's lovely photo. This is the owl that I most want to see in the wild. There's something about this animal that's just absolutely amazing. Look at the way those eyes pierce through through the picture. I cannot wait until I get to spend my time with a wild great gray. But again, do they really exist until I see them? I'm not sure. So because I haven't seen them, I'm going to show you something else. Last time we talked, I showed you a picture and some people were interested. So here is a picture of an animal. What is this animal? Some of you might know this animal. You might think it is a skunk. No. Some of you will say it's a penguin, but there's grass. Penguins and grass, I didn't know that that existed. Are you sure? Well, here's that photo to prove it. These ones are in South Africa. Here, oh, so here's a few more of them with a man playing a saxophone. He's not dressed in winter clothing, so now you know that we are not in a cold place. You would probably not play a sax in the cold. So there is a long-eared owl, which is one of the other species. This one I do know exists, although I haven't seen it. So there's an owl, there are some owls in a park, and they're referred to as celebrity owls. And I know that I could drive to this park and I could see this owl, and I could probably get some amazing photos. But I would rather not add to the stress on this owl or add to the negativity that's being added to this owl's life. I'd rather see it with myself, like myself and maybe one other person or a couple other people. I know that this one owl, there were actually two owls, and on February 4th, if I'm not mistaken, one of them got hit by a car. Is that because they were being stressed by photographers who were there? I'm not sure. But luckily, Anne shared some photos with me of the long-eared owl. The long-eared owl looks very similar to the great gray, but it has much longer ears. They're not actually ears, they're just tufts of feathers. So here's, you can actually see two of them. I would love to, and I'm very jealous of every photo that Anne takes. Every time she posts a photo, it's better than her last photo. It's actually quite annoying. But it's awesome because it's awesome to get to see all of these cool animals that maybe I've never seen myself. So again, I haven't seen one of these, so I'm going to share something with you that I have seen. So this is a cool video from Jamaica. Some of you might not know what this animal is. You'll see that it glides through the air. It's also similar in color to the snowy owl. It's black and white. But this is a spotted eagle ray. If you want to see a better version of this video, there is a link of it on my YouTube channel. It's an absolutely gorgeous animal, and I hope that you can understand and forgive me for not showing you the owls I haven't seen. But let's start talking about the owls I have seen. So the short-eared owl. I could go to that same park where the long-eared owl is, but I don't want to. But I knew that I didn't have many good pictures for this presentation. So on December 24th, I actually decided, knowing that it was a busy day for most people celebrating Christmas or getting ready, I took myself and I went on a long drive, not to the park in the GTA, but a little further away where I thought I might be able to see some short ears. I actually ended up seeing 8. And I think I got some decent pictures. You can see it sitting on the tire. So the short-eared owl is referred to as a ground-dwelling owl. So it actually hangs out and it'll actually nest on the ground. So you see them in different locations. But if you look at its face, it looks similar to that barred owl with that white panel. And again, if you even look at the wings, you can see the wings look similar to the barred owl. I wonder if they're related. I haven't done the research to find that out, but they seem the two closely connected owls to me, just visually. Feel free to comment or let me know what you think. The awesome thing about a short-eared owl is the way that it'll actually hover in the air before it actually will attack its prey. These are absolutely beautiful birds if you actually get to see them in the wild. And as all other birds, they tend to actually puff themselves up to help regulate their temperature. Again, would I love to have closer pictures of the short-eared owls? 100%. One day it'll happen. But hopefully I'm not adding stress to that animal. Let's move on to another animal. This is the hawk owl. So this is actually when I first learned about celebrity owls. This owl, though, loves to put on a show. I saw this owl in Schaumburg a few years ago, and there were hundreds of people who actually apparently would spend days upon hours with this owl. I drove 45 minutes, spent maybe 30 minutes with it, and then I left. And when I first got there, it was really shy. But I moved around and I got some different angles and I got some really awesome pictures, I thought. And I was happy with it. So I decided to actually leave because there were people there and I was like, this just didn't seem right. So as I walked away, the owl actually flew towards a post that was right next to me. And I was like, oh my goodness, you look more like a hawk than an owl. And he was like, yeah, I do. Got a problem with that? And I was like, no. And I got a couple cool snaps and then I walked away. And honestly, something I've never seen is this owl actually flew towards me and it actually landed on a tree right beside my head. So I quickly back up and I'm like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on because I've never been this close to an owl. And I was like, oh, it lifts its mouth up and all of a sudden I was like, oh man, I know it's about to happen. And I get excited. This thing dives to the ground, honestly, maybe a car distance from my feet, and it grabs prey. First owl I've ever seen hunt successful. And it flies around and it starts trying to find a place to hide. The northern hawk owl comes from the Boreal forest and it will hunt all summer, spring, fall, and it will plant its food so that it has food in the wintertime. So this one was just hunting and trying to place its food all over the place. It couldn't find a good spot for this mouse, so it just kept flying around with it. I got my pictures and I left. The Boreal owl is another owl. This one, there's only ever been 3 recorded sightings of this in Simcoe County, which is where I live. I live in Simcoe County, which is like Wasaga Beach, Collingwood, Barrie area, for those of you who don't know. But I get a random message from someone I don't know being like, yo, there's an owl 45 minutes from you, 45-minute walk into the bush. It might be there. You should go. And I was like, okay, yeah, that seems a little bit shady. Then I get a message from a guy. It's almost the same message. I respond, and he sends, once in a lifetime opportunity, my friend, best of luck. And I'm like, yo, gotta go. So in 2018, I decided to go for a walk, and I end up seeing these 2 ladies walking in this bush. And I'm like, it's weird that these 2 ladies are in the bush. So I asked them, I'm like, what are you doing? Have you seen the owl? And they're like, no, it wasn't there. And I was like, I decide that I'm going to go anyways, even though just because they didn't see it doesn't mean I won't see it. So I walk, and as I get to the tree that it's supposed to be, and I get there, and I don't really see it, and it's kind of blended in because its eyes are shut. And then all of a sudden, boom, its eyes open. I was like, oh my goodness. I now got to spend a few minutes with this Boreal owl before he ended up hiding and going back into the back of his hole. I'm glad I went for that walk, and I got to see one of technically 3 Boreal owls in the area. Pretty cool experience for me. But let's talk about the smallest owl, the saw-whet owl. So there's actually this saw-whet owl, which has only 1 eye, because people were actually sort of going and seeing it and probably making it a celebrity owl, and it got injured. I forget the full details on it, but this is Wink. I recently saw him as I was making a video for Speaking with Wildlife Sanctuary. If you'd like to see that, feel free to check it out on my YouTube. But we're not going to talk about Wink just yet. I went and I actually got to see some saw-whet owls in the wild. I've only seen 2 in the wild. And so some people, when they see a saw-whet owl or other owls, they'll actually start breaking branches to get a better picture. Well, those branches that you're breaking are actually making the camouflage not be there. This animal will now be able to be hunted by another animal. Is it worth it for you just to get that better picture? Why don't you just move to a different angle? Which is what I did. I moved to a different angle. I got a couple pictures, but the lighting wasn't right. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to try to find another one. And I found a second one. Oh, the lighting was so much better for this one. but there were more leaves. So I end up moving around and I find the angle I want. And then all of a sudden I get that picture I want. And I'm really original with my name, so I call it the Wink, which is the name of the owl at the sanctuary. Well, here's the craziest thing. I took a picture of Wink winking, but they're both winking the same eye. Is this something that saw-whet owls always do? I don't know, but I have a picture of both of them winking the same eye. That's a little bit odd to me. I've only ever seen 3 saw-whet owls. Well, let's move on to a different owl. An owl that I've probably spent a little bit more time with. Although I normally don't see this one close up, I have actually seen a few of these. When I have seen them close up, it was at a sanctuary. So I'll share these pictures. Look at the hair, the eyes. Look at how beautiful the great horned owl is, and the feathered. Look at how well that this animal could actually camouflage. This bird is actually more massive than you may actually think. This is one of our larger owls in Ontario. If you see here, you can actually see in the one picture, it's looking up into the sky because there's a predatory bird flying above. It might just be a raven that's going to annoy it, but they tend to pay attention to what's going on. Looking at the other one, you can see how well it actually blends with that tree. Great horned owls will actually change different colors depending on the area that they are. They'll have different colored feathers because they want to camouflage. Whenever I've seen a great horned owl in the wild, though, it's been way up in a nest and really far away. In this picture, you might actually be able to see the baby right dead center in the picture. It's really poofy at this time. But a baby great horned owl ends up being very similar in size to an adult very quickly. But unfortunately, when they're in the wild, they don't hang out close to me. So I don't get the greatest of pictures. So I end up having to find them in different locations. The most interesting thing about the great horned owl is that it will actually borrow or use other animals' nests. So if you look here, this owl is actually sitting in a great blue heron nest. You might not know what they actually that is, but they actually will nest in a heronry. So a bunch of great blue herons will actually nest in an area called a heronry, and the next year they'll come back. Sometimes if they're there a little bit late, a great horned owl might actually be in one of the nests. Not always, but every once in a while, a great horned owl will be in a great blue heron's nest at some point during every couple years. It's pretty cool to get to see. They don't seem to fight each other or interact, but they seem to get along because they share the nest. One of the owls that I think is actually most common is this owl, the Eastern Screech Owl. People say that there are 3 different colors of this owl. I know that there is a gray, and I recently confirmed there's a brown. I don't believe until I see with my own eye the red, but there is a red morph that they call it. And one day I will see this one. And I do hope that I actually get to see it sooner than later, but hey, let's look at some of the ones I have seen. This is the first Eastern Screech I've ever seen. It is a wood duck box, I was told. Now this means that every box and every nest or hole that I see in the forest, I need to check out because there could be an Eastern Screech Owl. Look at how well it blends into its surroundings. But you know what? Seeing an owl that is in a box isn't the same as seeing it in a fully natural setting. So I really wanted to see one in a tree. So this is my first Eastern Screech in a tree. So one thing, if you're looking, they tend to like sitting in the sun. They love to sun themselves. They're not a very big owl, but they will use any hole. But remember, they camouflage really, really well. Some of you might not even see this owl in this tree. It's on the left. It's on the left of the Y. Sometimes they'll actually use a hole that's way too big for them. They'll be out in the snow at times. But most of the time, they'll try to be hidden. I very rarely see these guys out of a hole. I've actually captured this one owl that was my inner me. He was really lazy and just comfy. And I feel, if you know me, this is very me, just nice and comfy and chilling and relaxed. There's this one owl that I refer to as the Pentose Sweet Owl. He's one of my favorite owls. So here you can actually see this owl through me. This picture was taken by Lori. So if you actually take a look, if you take a look closer at it without me blocking your view, you can actually see this beautiful tree. And I call it the Pentose Sweet because it's such a beautiful tree. And again, you can't just call it Eastern Screech Owl. Like, you got to call everyone something different. So this is the Pentose Sweet. And the funny thing is, some of you are looking at not the owl. You're looking at just the tree. So here's the owl itself. Can you see it? Maybe there's a little bit too much snow in the way. So I'll actually melt the snow for you. Don't worry, I didn't melt the snow. It just melted in time. I would go and check this owl out every once in a while. So I've only ever seen the great gray or the Eastern Screech Owl gray morph until recently. I went to this one park in Burlington and I refer to it as my lucky owl because I found some amazing things that day. I found my first brown morph, or at least I think it's a brown morph. And if you look in that purple circle, you can see a brown morph hidden. It was a great day and a day that I'll probably never forget. So sometimes the owl, I have some friends who will call me and give me some awesome tips. So remember my friend Anne who took all of those owl pictures? Well, she called me and was like, Jay, want to come visit? So I go and visit and she shows me this Eastern Screech, which is out of a tree, but it's really high up. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But I couldn't get any really good pictures. And then I looked up in a different area and I was like, huh, those look like beehives. And I'm like, I've never seen so many beehives close together. Like, that's really weird. And I'm like, I don't know. Those paper wasp nests are not on the top. They're on top of the branches. Wait a second. That one just shook it. It looked at me. And then I was like, wait, that one's got legs. Oh my goodness. Those aren't paper wasp nests. Those are baby owls. These are baby Eastern Screech owls. And just as I figured out, it looked at me and I was like, yep, that's not a bee wasp. That is an owl. It was an awesome experience. And thank you so much, Anne, for sharing it with me. I do wish that they were a little bit closer, but I understand that they didn't want to be close to the ground because they could have been attacked by predators. This is the most common owl, I think, that most people see. Or you have the best chance, I should say, of seeing. It's the barred owl. This picture here is a close-up of one at the raptors place that I went. Look at the big black eyes. All owls have some fairly sharp beaks at it. They are actually normally, we don't really realize how sharp those beaks might be. But look at these eyes and the beak. They're such beautiful birds. This is a fairly young one. But again, I prefer to show wild ones. So let's focus on some wild animals. So when you see a barred owl in the wild, you'll know because you'll see these black absence of light eyes that are just soul-sucking almost. And it's amazing. This is my first one. I didn't get to spend much time with it as it flew off because it sort of scared me and I probably scared it as I screamed in excitement. But then I saw my second one. And I actually got to spend quite a bit of time with this one. It did a little bit of a leg shaking dance for me. It actually even let me hang out and I was able to actually stand directly below it. As I look up and I took a couple pictures, we even watched a dog walker walk by. And then I left this owl where it was and it hopped on its way. It was a great experience. I've been fortunate enough to find one close to my own backyard. This is Barry. Barry is awesome. Sometimes Barry is a little bit shy, but Barry comes out no matter what the weather is. And we're going to come back to Barry in a second, but I want to talk about this one owl that I actually was told about. I'm not sure if I was called because there was just an owl or they thought it was injured. And I call this owl my four feathers because every owl I've ever seen has always been perfectly groomed and taken care of. But this owl looked a little bit different. It seemed what looked like four feathers were out of place. I would love to know what caused this. So I started looking around, and I didn't want to get too close to the owl for a bit, but I noticed that the whole back of this owl was actually roughed up. So I wonder if it had been attacked or something. Again, it did fly away, so I wasn't actually fully worried. It flew and it looked healthy, so we didn't try to catch it or anything. But I did try to investigate with pictures and all of that. But have you ever seen an owl that looked like that or had feathers that were roughed up like that? If you could help explain that to me, I'd love to know. So that's when I start looking at pictures like this and I'm like, owls are scared of something. I don't know what it is. And maybe it's just those ravens that bother them. But owls get scared of stuff. And I'm sure people do too. I know I get scared of stuff. I just never really realized that owls got scared. Occasionally, when you're out looking for an animal, you put yourself in the right position. And so this one time I set myself up and, oh baby, I'm in the right position. There's a barred owl and it's looking all around and I just sat there and I just enjoyed. You can see him start to just settle up. He fluffs his feathers. Oh, does he see me? I don't know. He probably does. Or maybe he smells me. I'm sure he senses me, but I'm not a threat to him, so he doesn't worry about me. And then fluffs up his feathers a little bit. And I'm sorry that I lost focus there for a second, but unfortunately, that's what happens when you hide in the trees. Sometimes your focal point moves. And then the owl moved to another location and it was sort of right above me. And I decided that it was best for me to actually maybe move away and give it its space. So off I went and I let it do its thing. But Barry is my favorite owl my favorite barred owl to photograph. Barry actually became pretty friendly with me. And no, I never fed Barry. Barry just noticed that I wasn't a threat. Barry would sometimes look at me and just sort of enjoy that I was there, but I always respected the distance. One time I got a little bit close and I hung out underneath on that one spot, but Barry didn't really seem to care. So I took a couple pictures and I walked away. I never knew actually where I would see Barry. Sometimes Barry would pop up on a tree. Sometimes Barry was actually really hard to see. I don't even know if you can find Barry on the right third of this screen. Right? You can kind of see how well an owl might blend in if you only see the back and not the eyes. But don't worry, we'll get to that eye training aspect soon. If there's snow in the way, it can actually be hard to find a barred owl. Look at how well they actually blend in. Occasionally, Barry didn't want me to take his picture, but he'd shake or whatever. I don't know. I think Barry was always looking out for me because Barry tended to show up until all the construction happened in my neighborhood. But here's my favorite owl, and the owl that I probably spend the most time with. In 2016, I had never seen a snowy owl. Then I saw 178, 131. I saw 191 last year, 81 in February alone. That's crazy. But let's start with some close-up photos. So here are some close-ups from that raptor's visit. Yes, it did eat a mouse, but I'm not going to show you all that nastiness. Just the tail sticking out. This is my favorite owl picture, and it led to so many cool things for me. This is when I decided actually that I was going to leave wildlife or teaching to try to become a wildlife photographer. It's also the only photo you've seen that will be edited. This is the original photo. I'm about to change it to the edited photo. See if you notice the difference. Other than my watermark, the only difference is I turned it black and white so that the color in the wood actually comes out. Again, that probably leads to a whole bunch of other discussions about photography. And feel free to ask them if you'd like. So where do you find a snow? Sometimes you find them on the ground, sometimes you find them in a tree. Sometimes you get lucky and you see them flying. Other times you see them on a post. But anytime you see a snowy, it's a beautiful thing. They can hang out in the wind and hold on to branches like nobody's business. This is a very interesting experience to me. So I know as a kid, I used to talk about why did the chicken cross the road? But here's the real question. And I know I've asked it a couple times in other talks. Why does the owl cross the road? This owl was on the left-hand side, stopped in the middle of the road. And then it continues to walk across the road. And no, that's not dirt. Those are snow buntings. Those are also birds that come from the Arctic, just like the snow in the wintertime. But this owl walks across the road, stops, and unfortunately a red pickup truck scares it away, or else I would have understood why did the owl cross the road. Again, maybe it's not something that everybody wants to know, but it's definitely something that I want to know. I assume it was just a mouse or a vole, but we'll never know. Owls will use anything to post up on so that they can actually see their prey, right? Whether it's a post, a barn, anything, an old barn, they don't really care. They'll use light posts. Again, a light post is probably the best spot for them. Does the tree need to be a pine tree? No, it can be any tree. Often they'll spend most of their day preening. Preening is when they clean themselves and take care of the feathers and put the feathers back in, which is why it's odd to me that that one barred owl had those rough feathers. Who knows? Again, sometimes the wind might actually blow their hair and get them in discomfort, but most of the time they're probably sitting on these light posts because they're looking for food. The only snowy owl I've ever seen a mouse, I think it was actually playing with it. So what happens once the actual owl catches the mouse? Well, that's the question that probably a lot of people want to know. Well, it will grab it, it will throw it in normally in 1 or 2 motions, swallow it whole. Out the back door comes the soft stuff. So all the mushiness will come out in poop that is what hit my shoulder. And then all the bones and fur will come out in a pellet. You can see that this owl is actually starting to release the pellet. In this picture, you can see it just below the line and it's falling. I did try really hard to find a pellet for this presentation, but I wasn't able to try to dissect it during this presentation, so I'm sorry. But I will make a video of one once I get one and share it on my YouTube for everyone to see. But they do happen fairly often. I have actually found a pellet where I found 10 different mouse skulls in. Just one pellet. That's the biggest pellet I've ever found. I wish I had a video of that, but at the time I didn't really think about it. So maybe these people had a problem with their TV that day. Who knows? Maybe it was a snowy reception. I'm sure that's some kind of bad joke that people make about these kind of owl photos. So what is the difference between a male and a female? With most of the owls, it's very hard to tell, but with the snowy, it's very easy. If it's all white, it's a male. If it's black and white or brown and white, it's a female. If it has a little bit of brown and white, it's probably an immature male. So there's a little, sorry about that. There's a little couple of facts about quickly able to identify a male and a female snowy. And if you ever get to see a snowy in the wild or any owl, I know it's an amazing experience and I hope you enjoy it. If you're lucky, they'll be close up, but please don't chase these snowies or any owl. Let them be and you'll maybe get a cool photo. Go out on the right night and you can actually get a full moon photo. Maybe the moon will be in the right place for you to get an awesome photo. Maybe it won't be the best photo, but it's kind of cool to try to plan to get a picture with a full moon and an owl in it. especially if you're like into Harry Potter, because I think this is the owl from Harry Potter. If I'm not mistaken, it's named Hedwig. But if I said it wrong, I'm sorry, Harry Potter fans, but I don't really read that much. So that's probably on me. But look at the feathers. And I did recently actually share a cool video where you can actually see the wind blowing through the feathers. That you can see this one. Every once in a while, you'll see an owl flying, and it's amazing to actually see the way they soar through the air. But just before they land, they sort of lift up and they open up their wings full spread, and it creates this awesome opportunity for a picture if you're at the right angle. This is one of my favorite pictures to show that wing spread aspect. I know it's not the greatest photo because it's maybe a little bit dark, but it shows that full spread and how beautiful these owls actually are. So there was one time last year that I thought I actually had found this owl that was injured, or a snowy owl. And I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So I started taking a couple pictures, and then we were like, okay, let's leave it be and we'll come back. So we left, and it was still there like 40 minutes later. So we started taking a few more pictures, and I actually ended up getting very close to it. And you can see how sharp those talons are in this one specific picture. I was actually quite terrified, and I've since this day bought special gloves that are used so that I could potentially catch it and be able to take an owl to a sanctuary to treat it without being injured or hurting the owl myself or the owl itself. But luckily, as I get close to this owl, it decides to poop and then fly away. Whew. I felt so glad I didn't have to try to chase this owl down. Trying to catch a sandhill crane that one time was hard enough. I don't know how hard it would have been to catch this snowy owl, but I would have enjoyed it. But I'm glad I didn't have to, and it flew off and was safe. So this is everyone's probably favorite part of the presentation. If you want, you can come and play with us and join in the chat. I might not answer in the chat, but you can sort of keep track of your score yourself. So if you can find the owl, give yourself a point. If you know what species it is, give yourself a point. And you know what? We're going to start this game right now. Keep tracks of the points yourself, and let's have some fun. So we've already started this game, and I've given you probably a little bit too much time, but there's an owl in this photo. Do you see it? Which owl is it? Okay. Well, there's the owl, and it's a snowy owl. I know that one was a little tough. Okay. So here is a little bit closer up photo for those of you who didn't see that last one. Right? Look at the way that the wind is blowing that snow. Yep, it's a snowy owl, and you can give yourself a free, nice, easy point if you saw this one and knew the animal. Don't worry, they won't all be that easy. So let's start with simple ones. Where's the best place to spot an owl? Do you see the owl? Yep, there it is. It's on the light post. Point for snowy. Do you see this owl? It is black and white. Nope, it's not there. Just because I said they are easy to find on a post doesn't mean they're always on the post. Yep, that's right. For some of you, you might have found it on the ground. Don't worry, they're not all going to be snowies. Do you see this owl? I often refer to this one as the Pentose Sweet. Oh, for those of you who paid attention, maybe you got that one. So this one is the Eastern Screech Owl. Oh, but it's not the face-on view. It's a little bit of a side view. Perception and perspective in life often comes into advantage or disadvantage in life, just like with wildlife photography. Change your perspective or your angle, life sometimes becomes a little bit better. The only and one of these I've ever seen close to water. It looks like the ice. This one might be easy for some of you. Oh, we've got a snowy owl. Ah, this one is a camouflaged owl. They always hang out in holes for me. I sort of told you earlier where this one would be. Its eyes are almost looking directly at you. Yep, that's right. It's an eastern screech owl. So, I'd like to take my nieces on owl trips. My nieces are in this picture, so am I. Do you see the owl? It's my backyard owl. I'll give you his name, Barry. Do you remember what type of owl that was? Nope, it's a barred owl. Yep, that's him right there. Okay, let's try one more. Let's get a little bit closer. There's my nieces with a lucky hat. Maybe that's why we found the owl. Do you see the owl? There it is, barred owl, another point. Well, that was a little bit tough. Okay, that's hard to see, I get it. That's what the owl actually looks like with my camera as opposed to a cell phone. Again, having the right camera pays off. Do you see this animal? It's not on a post. It's a female. It's sitting on the ground. It is a snowy owl. Sometimes they hang out in holes that are a little bit too big for them. Sometimes you might not see them, they only see you. This is the eastern screech owl. Playing a little game of peekaboo. So I told you when I saw this, I walked 45 or drove 45 minutes, walked 45 minutes. And then it opened its eyes. Well, when I left, it had turned its back on me and I could barely see it. That's why I left. I don't think it liked me. Do you see it? Look at how well it actually blends in. Do you remember this owl? It's the Boreal Owl. Look at that. Look at the camouflage on that. That's legitimately the same as the tree. Now I understand why those ladies might not have seen it that I saw walking out. Oh, that looks like a heron-y. There's two great blue heron nests. Wonder what this picture could be showing. Do you see it? Look in the nest. Maybe it's in the trees. Who knows? Yeah. For those of you with a good eye, maybe you see it right there. You see the head poking out of the nest. That is a great horned owl. So most of the pictures I've shown you, the owl has been looking at you. Now I'm showing you a picture and I'm telling you it's a snowy owl. There is no eyes looking at you. Can you see it? I'm even going to tell you it's on the ground right by a post. Do you see it? I'm even going to circle it. Do you see it within the circle? Now imagine you were actually driving, let's say 80 kilometers an hour, because that's what the speed limit says. Do you see it? Okay, how about we zoom in, just so that you can actually see it. The eyes are there now. Makes it much easier to see. And for those of you who are still like, Jay, I don't know what you're looking at, here you go. There it is. The circle's nice and small around it, so you can hopefully see it. Look at how well a male snowy owl hides. It is basically a snowball in the snow. I'm not sure how I saw it, but I got lucky. Can you see this owl? This is Barry. Barry is sometimes a little bit shy. Doesn't always look directly at the camera. Oh, yeah, he's dead center, I know. So that's a barred owl. Here's another one. The eyes are covered though. Can you see it? A little bit better camouflaged. This one might be a little bit tough for some of you. Well, let's get a nice easy one. Let's give everybody a nice easy point here. So there you go. There's Barry one last time. I'm not even going to ask you to try to find the owl in this picture because I'm going to zoom in first because this picture is really tough. So I'm going to zoom in on the picture. And I'm going to even circle the snowy owl for you. I'm going to give everybody a little cheat code. Ready? Focus on those trees. And I'm going to go to that last picture. Do you see the snowy owl? Don't worry. I struggle to find it too. Here it is. Again, the difference between a good camera and a cell phone. The naked eye in a camera, or even a telescope or a viewing scope, or whatever you want to call it, right? There's an advantage to having the right gear. What is this animal? It sits on the ground. Oh, it doesn't have long ears. It's got short ears. So it's a short ear owl, right? Oh, that one was easy. But most of you probably were like, Jay, what if you have more than one animal in a picture? Well, then it's called a government. And we've got 3 short-eared owls in this picture. Do you see the owl in this picture? It's a weird perspective, though. I'm actually on top of the owl, and it's flying below me. Do you see it yet? This one's going to need a big circle because it's actually pretty close to me. That's a barred owl. That's the 4-feathered barred owl. Don't worry, we're coming to an end soon. So here's one of my last, or my favorite snowy owls, and I'm driving 80 kilometers at this time. And I'm going to show you what it is, and it's a male snowy owl. This one's really tough to see. So we've zoomed in a little bit, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so that you have a chance to take a look at it. So, can you see the owl? The eyes are actually looking at you in this one to make it a little bit easier. There you go. Did you find it? Can you find it in this next picture when we zoom out a little bit? It's a little bit easier now that you know where you're looking. For those of you who needed a little help, there you go. So this owl, and my last of the safari hunt, is what I refer to as the kid hiding. This owl thinks that just because I can't see it, or sorry, just because he can't see me, I can't see him. Well, if you look closely, you can see the bottom of the owl. I wish I got to spend more time with this owl, but he or she was a little bit shy, but at least I got this cool picture of it hiding. So I do hope that you've enjoyed our time together. Again, if you're in Algonquin, Meaford, or Thornbury, please check out my galleries. Check me out online. Subscribe to my YouTube channel because I have some pretty cool content there, I think. If you're in the Wasaga Beach area, please stop by and visit Bones and myself. Do a tour with me because it's kind of fun. Unfortunately, I don't have Sandy with me, but there's still some cool stuff here. And on May 27th, I do have this new, or our next presentation together. This one's going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. This one's on skulls, antlers, and dinosaur footprints, or a dinosaur footprint. Some of the things are things I have, or I've gone to friends' houses, and we'll take a closer look. So like the one is a green sea turtle shell. The other one in that picture is a narwhal tusk. So we've got some cool things that we're going to look at. Again, they're not all mine, but I have some pretty cool people who are willing to share some stuff with me. If you have any questions, feel free to jump into the chat or question and answer box, and we'll answer all your questions. Now, thanks for listening.
That was awesome, Jason. I thought I was going to see all those owls in your photo, and I probably got about 2 or 3. I was really bad at it.
That's okay. It's honestly, it's tougher than it seems. Like I struggle sometimes to find them myself in the pictures when I'm trying to tell people.
Right. It seems like you have a good eye for it, though, when you're driving along the road and stuff. I feel like I've probably passed many owls in my days and just not even seen them. We have some questions that are actually coming in, and lots of comments, too, about awesome experiences, great quality photos. Steve even shared that he's actually photographed all 11 owls in Ontario, which is pretty impressive. So one of the first questions that came in was, what's the size of a snowy in comparison to other owls?
A snowy, I would say, is probably about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet, and like a saw-whet or a eastern screech. And sorry, an eastern screech would be about the size of a volleyball in like height-wise, and then a saw-whet is about the size of a pop can or like a Tim's cup. Like it's not in like an extra large, but like a medium.
That is very Canadian of you.
Yeah.
There was kind of 2 back-to-back questions. One question was, how do we find 8 owls in one day? And then the follow-up question is, how do we even go about seeing 1 owl in a day? How do we increase their chances of actually seeing one, or any species, where to go, what to look for?
So you need to know where to look. There are apps out there depending on how you want to go. That's always like, you can use an app to try to help put you in the location, talking to friends. Honestly, a lot of people have never seen an owl and they come and do a tour with me, and then they're like, Jay, now I see them everywhere. And like my one buddy, Matt, I kind of am jealous of him because he sees more owls, I think, now than I do. But it's about learning and knowing what you're looking for. If you're walking through the forest, check every hole. Owls tend to be about 8 to 12 feet up. And also, you need to go out and go looking for them. You can't just be sitting on your phone at home, which I think is what's the best way to see them. You got to go out and look for them. You'll end up seeing them if you try. There's days I go out and I don't see them. Then there's days that like listen to the animals also, because they'll kind of talk to you and tell you. Yeah, it's just have some fun, enjoy, and you never know what's around that next tree or around that next corner. So
that's awesome. And another question that came into the chat bar, is Riverwood a good location to spot owls? And that's from Jane. We're actually hoping to get Jason to come to Riverwood, and hopefully he'll bring his owl magic with him so that we can spot some owls. We do have upcoming programs though, surrounding birds. So this weekend we have a beginner birding program with myself, and then next week it's full at the moment, but we have a March break nighttime nature program as well, which we'll be exploring kind of nocturnal animals. So luck to see or hear nocturnal owls then. But yes, Jason, we're hoping to have you out so that
I would say that Riverwood is an amazing area to see owls. Have I seen owls in Riverwood? No, but I'll say this, I've seen more deer experiences than I have in any other place in Riverwood. And the environment around Riverwood sets it up great for there to be some owls. Owls, though, don't always like to be seen, people. So you might not see them. They might see you. How many of the owls did you see when I was showing you in the presentation? Right? Again, I know that it might be hard looking at your computer screen, but there's 1,000 holes out there. Like, you have to be there at the right time, at the right hole, like all these things have to line up for you to actually see it. So I don't know if it's like I've looked in the same hole 100 times and seen nothing. 101st time I see the owl and it's like, oh. But again, a lot of people might have ended at 100 or even 50 or 22. Why did I go 101 times? Because I felt that it was a good hole, and you get lucky. You just got to stay determined. And so I'm also looking at some of these chat questions because I figured out how to look at it. So there's one that says, what do I consider a good camera? That's a loaded question, but great question. There's 2 ways to answer that. One is, it's the camera you have with you. So a cell phone camera is awesome in certain circumstances because that's the one you might have with you. The other thing is, I think a good camera is anything that has a detachable lens, because then you can actually change your lens for shooting telescopic far things or shooting things that are close. But that actually made me remember something that I wanted to like share with people. I sort of showed Steph before. This is kind of special to me, and I just actually got it, I think on like probably like 3 days ago. But there is an owl on it. But because I'm into photography and I'm learning how to play goalie, I got this hockey helmet made with all of my pictures. Well, not all of my pictures, but some of my favorite pictures on it, so that I can have it as a cool display piece. And then when I go and play hockey, oh, sorry, I have a strap in there. I can look really cool and support my work. Please don't take any screenshots of this, people. But yeah, so that's something fun and silly that I decided to do. But let me take a look at some of these other questions.
Yeah, one that keeps coming up, Jason, is are there certain times that are best to see them, and also seasonal? Are there certain owls that you can see during season? So seasons and time of day.
So season, I think the best time of season is actually like fall and springtime. Sorry, fall to spring, because there's less leaves on the tree. So if you walk the same trail in the winter time as opposed to summertime, you can see potentially 5 feet in the summertime. You can see probably 25 feet in the winter time because there's no leaves. So that would be the best time. Certain owls, like I wouldn't take someone on a specific tour to see an owl outside of February or November to March. That would be when my prime time to see owls is. And so that's when I consider owl season is November to March. Again, have I seen some outside of that? Sure. Do I know other people have? Yes. But those would be my, that would be my thoughts of best time based on my data. And time of day, I'm in the process of trying to figure that out. I would say normally, like, the best time to go is when you have time. It doesn't mean that they'll be out there, but if you don't have time to go at nighttime, then you can't go at nighttime. But I would say the best time is probably anywhere from like 2 p.m. onwards. And that would be probably my best, but I am actually legitimately starting to track like times of when I see owls so that I can maybe give you a better answer next time.
That's awesome. Thank you. And we'll end on one last question, just as I'm cognizant of time. What's the biggest thing an owl eats, Jason? This is a really good question.
You're asking me. I've heard of them eating some big things, and like I've heard of them actually coming and eating on like a deer carcass.
Wow.
Have I seen that with my own eyes? No. I've heard of them eating bunnies, like catching their own bunnies. Mm-hmm. But I think it also depends on the owl. But I would say like consistently, probably a bunny across the scale would be probably the biggest thing, but I've heard of them eating something as big as a deer.
There's records, well, there's lots of observations actually down in the GTA along the lakeshore, actually, snowy owls picking off ducks.
Yes, they definitely do eat ducks. And I know exactly the owls that you are talking about, mm-hmm. or the snowies, because again, they do, a lot of owls tend to have like an area that they want to hang out in. So it's just knowing where to look and what to look for actually will sort of help you.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure we could just keep throwing a million questions at you, Jason, all day, and we could sit here all day and chat with you. But maybe we'll keep some of those questions for your next presentation on antlers, which we're really excited about. And we're hoping to get Jason out to Riverwood as well to lead a hike. We need you out here.
We are.
That's awesome. So thank you so much, Jason. Great presentation. Thank you everyone for all of your questions and your engagement today as well. I don't know, Jason, if you wanted to say anything before we say goodbye today.
Thank you everyone for listening. If you can follow and like my photos and subscribe to my YouTube channel, greatly appreciate it. And just sort of follow along with my journey. I do actually release episodes of like cool things that are happening wildlife related every sort of week. And I have a really cool fox video that I recently released where we go inside like a den sort of at part of it. So feel free to follow and enjoy and share and just enjoy wildlife and keep yourself safe and the animals safe and respect them and they'll respect you hopefully and stay safe.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, for all your tips today. And we will see you in the next one, everyone. Goodbye. Have a great weekend.
See ya. Bye-bye.